Well, obviously you didn't get a snow day today. I apologize for that. Although I do know there are some businesses in town that when we call off school, they get the day off. And that will explain, just that much more pressure I'm under every time there's a cloud or a snow flurry in the sky. I have to tell you too that I'm going to go on the circuit, and not just in Lincoln, but I think nationally with snow day stories, because I get the best. And I have this. Take a look at this one. And his mother is here today. This is David Stevenson, a freshman at East High School, and this was not last night, by the way, because I was Darth Vader right up until about 8:20, and then superhero from 8:20 on. And I told a couple of kids, just promise me you're going to self-educate today, and every one of them assured me they were absolutely going to do that. But this is right up there with the top 2 or 3 that I've gotten, and you can see that somehow he got a hold of his mother's cell phone. It was 10 o'clock at night 2 nights ago, and just before I went to bed, I popped open my phone just to see, is there anything I need to read? And there it is. I mean, it's all about his older brother's a really bad driver during normal conditions. Please don't make him drive him to school when it's snowing. Prior to that, I have to tell you, one of my great delights was calling school off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the cold weather day at the end of the Christmas vacation. You remember that? And I know some of you are still upset about that because your sons and daughters were home for another day. But I beat the kids to the punch. Now, the good news was I wasn't getting any emails. The bad news was I have another student at East High School that's been my unofficial weather advisor since I moved here. And this kid has not contacted me. And I was really feeling saddened about that. And my wife said, well, give it time. I mean, it's only 9 o'clock at night. And at 10 o'clock, he popped in. And it's priceless. And it was from Jacob. And what Jacob said to me was, Dr. J, great call today. You are coachable. So you know what audience I'm playing to. It's our kids. But as long as they're self-educating, then it's a day well spent. So Tuesday is a very important day for Lincoln Public Schools. I want to preface everything that I say by thanking you one more time, and not only those that are here today, but the organizations that you represent and the great support we have from the best community in America for Lincoln Public Schools students, all 38,000 of them. And on Tuesday, it's a report card of sorts for us. Our Board of Education has been working very, very hard. We've done up to 110 presentations. Connie Duncan, I think, is here, who's the co-chair of our awareness campaign with Keith Prettyman. Jenny Absalon of LEA, and I don't know if these folks are here or not, but I can just tell you a great amount of effort has gone into trying to inform our voters. So we'll find out on Tuesday, what people think. We're guardedly optimistic. We were told on the front end, because this was the first time an election of this magnitude is going to be held in our state via the mail, we were told to expect a pretty good turnout. 163,000 ballots were mailed out. And we were expecting between 65 and 75,000 to be returned, which would have doubled whatever would have participated in a regular election or a primary election. And those numbers are a little low. So we'll see next Tuesday what it's like. We've been told that we have a board meeting on Tuesday, that there's a good chance that we'll have a pretty good indication prior to the board meeting, which is 6 o'clock. And then there'll be a series of I'm sure press releases along those lines. So we're excited, but thank you all very much. And Nick, for the last ditch effort here, Nick's been handing out cards for the last month or so, and just appreciate that very much. And again, thank you all for your support, and we'll see what happens on Tuesday. So really, I want to talk a little bit about just some of the things that are happening with Lincoln Public Schools, and we take our work very, very seriously. As you know, we have a strategic plan, and we're doing our level best to continue to educate students to the highest possible qualities and give them a chance to be successful in life. And in fact, I think that's being borne out on a daily basis. Our kids are doing well. We're graduating at a record level. 87.1% of our students are graduating in 4 years. And our NISA test assessment results are very, very good, very strong. We're one of the drivers in the state of Nebraska in terms of how our kids do on achievement. So we're very academically focused. And what I'm really proud of is we're able to do that in an environment that's growing very rapidly. And those of you that have heard presentations on the bond, you know we've had 11% growth in the last 5 years. We grew 2 elementary schools last year. And what's been interesting this year, since September 1, we've had 642 new students from around the world. And that's unique for us as well, too. Lincoln is a refugee resettlement community, and a lot of people don't know what that is. I honestly didn't know what that was before I became superintendent. But the best way to describe it to you is when we read about something that's happening in terms of an international incident around the world, and I'll just use the Ukraine as the most recent example, within 18 months to 2 years, we'll have students from those countries in our schools. And so 4 years ago when I came here, we had about 200 students from Burma. And most recently, we've been getting students from Syria, Iraq, Iran, all throughout the Middle East, and some of the other afflicted areas. The great news for us as a community and also for our student body is that we truly are a window to the world. And in Lincoln, Nebraska, it's way, way beyond our borders. Our kids have some of the greatest and most enriching opportunities to learn about other cultures. So Laura, my great assistant, was able to these are the countries that in just this year alone, in alphabetical order, I wanted to try to do them by numerical numbers. But you can see those are the countries that we've had represented just since the beginning of the school year. And we have, there's 5 levels of English language learner instruction. Level 1 means absolutely no English skills. We had about 200 of those 642 students at all grade levels that came into our schools this year not speaking anything with the English language. And we're going to do everything we can to get them to graduate in 4 years. So we're excited about that. You know that we've tested all our juniors. We made a conscious decision a year ago that even though it was going to drive our aggregate numbers down as a district, which subsequently is going to drive down the state aggregate numbers because we consistently score above the state average in the ACT, we made the decision to test all of our kids because we just think there's much greater positive impact in terms of providing hope for students who ordinarily wouldn't have much hope for a future. And we've seen that. You'll be reading about, if you haven't already, success stories from last year's junior class, students that would have never taken the ACT getting 27s to 32s. And I just, as recently as this week, heard about one young man who is received a full ride to one of our institutions here in Lincoln as a result of that. Nobody in his family was educated, and certainly college wasn't on his radar screen. Smart student, apparently, did very well in the ACT. We're going to continue with that program. Understand Bill Avery's got a continuation bill in there to continue funding that. That is a very, very good thing. And if we can get rid of the 11th grade assessment or replace that with an ACT, we think that would even have greater impact for a lot of our students. So we feel really good about where we are academically. The bond issue contains the Career Center. $12.5 million of the 153 is our half of this Career Center concept that I've spoken with you about in the past, and you've been reading about it, and you know, I'm very, very happy to say virtually everybody that we're interacting with on the business side of Lincoln is very excited about what this represents. We see this as a game changer for our kids, and it's driven by a couple of things. A conversation with Nick and Wendy 4 years ago about workforce development and about opportunities that exist in Lincoln for young people to be able to connect as early as possible to careers. We see that as another measure of hope for students, particularly in poverty, that wonder sometimes, what do I get out of school? What does school do for me? And we also see it as providing maximum agility for students who participate in this program, half a day, 4 semesters, of having not only a high school diploma at the end of their study at the Career Center, but also 1 year of college paid for, and industry certification, if in fact they're in one of the programs that'll do that. And so those are the clusters. And what I will tell you about those clusters is each one of those clusters will have a number of pathways that will be connected directly to the opportunities that exist in our community. And they're going to be driven by an advisory group in each one of those clusters that will help us frame up curriculum and frame up internships and mentorships so that our students will have access to what Lincoln has available. And this will also help us move some students out of our soon-to-be crowded high schools and give us an opportunity to put anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 students out there beginning in the fall of 2015, which is another reason why our board selected Tuesday as an election so that we can bring this to our community in the fall of 2015. We still have a lot of work to do, and we're going to be doing a lot of work connecting with you as we go forward with respect to making sure we have sustainability dollars, commitments that can be either equipment, monetary resources, or staffing. And in the models that we've seen, and Nick's been to see one of those on several. Fuchs was there a couple of different times. We've had a number of folks from the community that have taken some tours to look at some national models. What we see is the ones that succeed and do well are the ones where there's a genuine, strong partnership between public schools and business and industry. And that's what we're excited about because, again, this will be a game changer for our kids and a game changer for our community. And it certainly will help as we go as a city and try to recruit large companies that want to come here that worry about where is the future workforce. And I can tell you that in the states and communities where we saw this, economic developers would use this as a great tool to entice companies to come. And we have the kids. What we don't have right now is really the career connection to the degree that we need to that'll make a big difference. So we're excited. You can see those career clusters. Fred Oles is here. Education is something that we're going to partner with Wesleyan on and Southeast Community College, kind of a 2+2+2 program. We're going to be trying to identify minority students that we have in our schools, try to get them interested in education. We want to, it's kind of a grow your own, but it's also has the ability to become a national model that we can hope to expand as we go forward. And we're not limiting choices for kids. We're opening up windows of opportunity for them. So those are the key areas. And again, many career pathways that'll flow from those that we think will be exciting. I want to digress for just 1 second too and tell you, because I know that you pay attention to what poverty represents. And we have 46% of the children in Lincoln Public Schools of 38,000 students that are in poverty. And that number, that percentage, continues to grow. In fact, I was looking at the Kids Counts report just this morning before I came over, and you know the kinds of things that poverty brings into a child's life are really quite damaging and can be permanently negatively impacting children's abilities to be successful. And one of the things that we did 4 years ago, we partnered with Gallup. We were curious about what kind of hope do our children have for the future. And I have to tell you, 4 years ago, we were alarmed with our percentages that our students said that they didn't have hope. I mean, they didn't have hope primarily because there was nothing that was driving that hope. And our graduation rate was under 80%. So there was a correlation between student success and hope, obviously. But here's where the difference was made. And it was made by many of you in the room today. Through Teammates, through United Way, through our Education Foundation, LPS Education Foundation, the Community Foundation, many of the groups, the Backpack Program, through all of those resources that came to us to provide support, our hope numbers are in the top 15%, I believe, of the United States of America, and the sample is huge. And so we went from a district that had a lot of children that didn't know where it all was going to a district where the vast majority of our kids now have hope because of the resources that we're able to bring to the table. All the more reason why we have to continue to step on the pedal and make sure that as we try to go from 87% to 90%, the career centers, the teammates, the backpacks, the funded needs, those things that are just making a difference every day at the classroom level, continue to go. And I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, with that 87% on-time graduation rate, that is a national leading statistic when you think about 46% of our students being in poverty. So the investment in education and the investment in people and investment in children is something that's very, very commendable, and I want to thank, I don't ever want to miss the opportunity to say thank you for everything that you're doing to make that possible. We couldn't do it ourselves. So let me just spend our last couple of minutes, because I know there'll be at least one question in the room, and maybe more. I see, is that Randy Brett's back there? So I guarantee two, Nick and Randy, and I don't know who else is thinking of a question. But what are our challenges and opportunities going forward as we think about 87% of our kids being successful? And by the way, 4 years ago, 80% was considered very successful. So we went from 80 to 87% because our Board of Education created a strategic plan, and we began aligning our resources and our strategies and our interventions on individual students or pockets of students that historically are not successful. I was out at the Youth Detention Center a couple of weeks ago. Many people don't know what the Youth Detention Center is. We have 60 students out at the Youth Detention Center. I was talking to a group of 3 of them, and I was trying to give them some motivation in terms of, even though you're incarcerated, get your education, get your diploma, because we have the ability, we have the educational program out there. And one of these young men, he just kept looking at me with a stern look, and when I was done with the conversation, he said to me, "None of this matters to me." And I said, "Why?" He was 17 years old. He said, "Because I'm going to go to prison for a long time." And sure enough, last week he was sentenced. Well, the message for us is that we're not going to be able to go out to the Youth Detention Center and probably get those students to be successful and graduate in 4 years. But if we intervene early on in their lives and we begin to address mental health issues and behavioral issues, which are growing leaps and bounds in all public schools across the country, then we can cut that number of 60 at the Youth Detention Center to 10 or 15 or 20, and maybe not have the population issues that we have in our prison systems across America. Because one of that, this again is a byproduct of abstract poverty in terms of how young people are really struggling with their environments. So one of the things you can be hearing more about with LPS is what we're calling success schools. We've decided that for 87% of our kids, what we have works. The next 1% is going to be about teaching kids how to be better people. And that's going to be a program that we're going to pilot, and we're going to do some training on it. And it's not going to be, we're no longer going to take students that are creating difficulties in schools and classrooms and bring them someplace for a half a day. It's going to be more of a full day program, and we're going to train our teachers to work with them at a different level. We want to try to fix behaviors. We want to try to get kids to where when we send them back to schools, they're ready to be functional, and it's really about helping build them into better citizens. 21st century classrooms, it's in the bond issue. Significant dollars are included. We can talk all we want about. We want 21st century classrooms because there's lots of resources out there that we can acquire. We have all of our teachers come to us today ready to get going utilizing technology as a supplemental educational technique. The problem is we don't have the capacity in our schools to turn the technology on to where we can use it whole school. So bandwidth infrastructure is extremely important to us in this bond issue. But I don't want to mischaracterize that. We have great things happening in our classrooms sporadically throughout the city with respect to utilizing technology as a teaching tool, but we have a long ways to go. More time to learn. There's going to be a lot of conversation, I think, in America about that. You know, when you think about, some of you through some of your social groups and civic groups, you had a chance to see the video that we acquired. Jamie Vollmer wrote actually created a video. He's an educational supporter in our community and a internationally known author. Schools can't do it alone. And if you ever want to show something to a group of people about what's happened in public education in the last 50 years, and particularly in the last 10 years, it's really quite alarming, because whenever there is a social issue that needs to be addressed by the country, and just think about drug and alcohol or obesity or citizenship or, you know, whatever it is. I mean, and there's plenty of them. Nutrition. The schools are the ones that are asked to deliver curriculum in that. And so what Jamie Vollmer does is he does a wonderful job of showing that in a 17-minute video, and we're happy to loan it to you. You can ask Laura about it if you have a group that might have an interest. And when you're done, you shake your head and you go, wow, so many more things get put on schools. But here's the caveat. We've not been given another minute of instructional time or another day in our calendar. And so whenever we're hearing about things that we should be doing a better job of, or we need to be adding this to the curriculum, the point that's always absent is where do we get the additional time to do it? And so this is something that I think in America we're going to have to come to terms with. And whether that's an extended day, which we're very, very fortunate in Lincoln to have what we call after-school opportunities with extended days through our community learning centers. But not all school districts in the country have access to that. It's really about extending opportunities, particularly for kids in poverty, to be in an environment that's nurturing in a social way and an academic way. But there's going to have to be some more time for education. How we afford that, I don't know. But the reality of it is we can't keep adding more and more to our plates without having more time to be able to deliver that. Health, wellness, and obesity. At the end of the month, Bob Rauner is going to report to our board that we've done a great job. We've knocked down our obesity rates, kindergarten through 5th grade. Actually, I think it's kindergarten through 8th grade in a very significant way. Michelle Welch is somebody that we've had on our staff now for 3 years, and the programs are working. We're a much healthier organization, not only from a student perspective, but a staff perspective as well. And Michelle is most known for drive-by fruitings, which is what she does in our office all the time. I talked about the growing number of ELL students. That's going to continue to challenge us, and replacing great talent. We are so, again, fortunate and blessed in Lincoln to be a destination location where people want to come. And we get, we have access to top talent graduating from all of our institutions, and they come here as teachers or as folks that support what happens in our classroom, and they stay. And the good news is they stay, they develop their skills, they make a huge difference. Their legacy work really shows in our numbers. The bad news is when people with 25 and 30 and 35 years of experience leave, then we have to replace that talent. And so that's going to continually be a challenge for us, not only at the classroom level, but certainly for those that support the classroom and at the administrator level. But change is in the wings. We know this. We can't sit still and expect that numbers are going to take care of themselves. I mean, we do believe in momentum. We think that we've got some momentum in terms of forces that are supporting us, but we also know that we can't rest easy. We have bold goals. We think we can be a 90% on-time graduation school district. Again, thinking about our population and thinking about our demographics. That'll be a huge challenge for us, but we think we have the folks to do it. We've just recently announced and are very much looking forward to a new president of our LPS Foundation, Wendy Vance here. I'd like to just have her stand up and she can We're excited to have her join our team, and I know you'll have an opportunity to hear about some of the exciting ideas that our foundation. Boyd Ober is one of our officers, and I don't know if Lisa Smith is here. She's the chair of the board. But we know that, again, if we're going to do the kind of work that the community expects and that we want to be a part of, then we're going to have to continue to reach out and develop those partnerships. So I'm going to stop there and just say one more time again, I so much appreciate this opportunity to be here today, but even more importantly, appreciate all the support you have for Lincoln Public Schools. And I'll open it up now for any questions that anybody might have. Yeah, Boyd. Well, one of our strategic priorities for that, thank you for that question, with respect to how do we address diversity, is we're out of whack right now in terms of the people that we have serving kids and what our demographics suggest. And Thomas Christie in my office and Eric Weber, who is in charge of all of our human resources, we are aggressively recruiting and making sure that we help develop diversity in terms of our employee base as we're able to acquire it. And we've really had some nice gains there. So that's one factor. The other factor, I think, is, you know, we've launched into a very aggressive cultural proficiency movement inside our school district so that we can do more than say we think we understand what diversity represents, and really look at ourselves, turn inward, and gain a much better appreciation and sensitivity of what cultural diversity represents. So we have a long way to go, but you know, I really feel proud of the roads that we're making. All of our demographic groups, which would be classified or represented by cultural diversity, all had good growth in the last couple of assessment periods. So, you know, we're a long ways away. Native American students, for example, is one that challenges us on a regular basis, and part of our problem really is that it's such a small population of students. It's not a very large one, but in our African American and our Latino, we're seeing some nice gains. We're not where we need to be, and we need students in those demographic groups to graduate at 90% as well. So we have a lot of work to do. But you know, I could point to any of our high schools, and I'll just use Northeast as an example. If a great success story, as all of our schools have been, but Northeast, double-digit increases in student success, and a lot of it is because of what I just described. You know, it's a staff that is embracing and welcoming differences in students, and understanding that you know, there's ways that we can help them develop better. Good, Nick.
Hey, just a quick question on the Career Academy. Obviously, the bond issue has to do with bricks and mortar, and assuming that's successful, I know you have a lot of work going on behind the scenes on building curriculum, and of course that will kind of pick up pace once the bond issue passes. Question having to do with the change of the culture of what historically has been kind of viewed as technical education. So there's your educators, your staff, there's parents, and then there's students. In a past history of some negative vibes about technical or career type education, that's just for those kids. What plan do you have about promotion and trying to change that culture?
Great. Those of you that have as many years on you as I do, you remember in those multi-level schools, the shop classes were always in the basement, and you never went there because that's where those kids went. That's not what this concept's going to be. We're going to see kids from all over the city that are going to want to be in this program when they see what it represents. And it's going to be a high accountability program. It's going to be a motivator for students that perhaps are marking time because they're not connected. It's going to be a motivator for students who want to study medical sciences because they want to be a physician. And it's going to be by application. There'll be interviews associated with that, and students are going to have to convince us that this is where they want to be, and it's for the right reasons. So attendance is going to be critical. You know, you're not going to hire students that don't have good attendance focus. And they also have to have a work ethic, and they also have to be collaborative and very constructive in their thinking. So we're working on that, and you know, as we speak. But we think that if we have 800 to 900 year one, we're going to do really well, which is in 15. But we think that we'll hit that 1,200 very, very quickly. At Southeast Community College, there's room for expansion to the south. But this is not, I want to repeat this for the manyth time, this is not going to be a dumping school. This is not a school where we're going to say, the counselor's going to say to a student, all right, one more mistake and you're going to the Career Center. It's going to be the other way, and in fact that's already happening. When you think about, I was at one of our high schools last week, counselors are talking to students already about what this represents. And we have a class that is required of juniors now. It's called Take Charge. It's career education and financial literacy, and many thanks to Union Bank and Nelnet and some of our great partners on that. But that's how we're going to make kids aware that in fact there's a lot of opportunity in our city. So I don't know that I'm doing justice to the answer, but the short answer is, this is going to be a great game-changing concept. Might be time for one more. Please, Brad. Yes. Yeah. Community learning centers, we are extremely fortunate. We have 25 of them in the city. They're in our highest needs schools. They are before and after school programs, and what makes our CLCs nationally unique and recognized is that they are partnerships with other service providers. And so the cost of providing a CLC is really a shared cost and a shared partnership. We'd like to expand that to 35 of our schools. We think that, again, expanding time for students to be less impacted by the ravages of poverty and more impacted by social and academic nurturement is going to help our city and certainly our families and our students to a much greater level. Funding of CLCs is very much at risk, and our board this last year put some dollars from our budget kind of in reserve. We don't believe we're going to have to use it this year, but put it in reserve so that if our grants don't come through, and Leanne Johnson, who heads up the program for us, is very aggressive in pursuing those, we have something that we can fall back on. We can ill afford to lose CLCs. That's a value add here that if we didn't have them, we wouldn't see these numbers. And we would be seeing a whole lot greater concentration of kids that were having social difficulty in school. So it's a wonderful concept. It needs to be expanded. We're in one high school, North Star, and several of our middle schools. But you'll be hearing more about that as we go forward too, but thanks for that question. So yeah, Joe.